worldwide on the SportsMap Radio app. We got a lot to do over the next 3 hours, as we do every night. Keeping tabs on the NBA late night action. All you people looking for some late night picks, maybe some live betting winners. We have been so good at it all season long. With very few exceptions, we have been consistently giving you winners in our live betting. Some nights it's one pick, some nights it's two. We've gone as many as three. There is a late NBA game, which should be rather entertaining, that we will have our eyes on tonight. That will be the Timberwolves and the Nuggets that we will be keeping tabs on. I've got cords that are making noise. It's kind of odd. Anyway, a lot to do, as I said, over the next 3 hours. I want to start with a question for the audience tonight. A little audience participation in the first hour of the program. 1-800-224-2004 is the phone number. 800-224-2004 from anywhere in America. Anywhere on the planet, in fact. And here is the question tonight. Who needs it the most? What franchise most needs a victory in this divisional NFL playoff round? I was racking my head around this all day today. Of the 8 teams that remain to win a Super Bowl, and I'm not talking about winning a Super Bowl. I'm just talking about needs a win this week. If you could pick one team and say this team needs a win more than anybody, which team would you pick? That's the question I'm asking you in this hour. 1-800-224-2004. 800-224-2004. The Jaguars and the Chiefs. I think we rule them out. Jacksonville playing with house money. They won their division. They won 9 games a year after winning 3 and being the laughing stock of the league, with Urban Meyer basically being laughed out of the league and sent back to the collegiate ranks, where hopefully he stays and never rears his ugly head again in the NFL. We don't want you. So it's not Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence, the growth that we've seen throughout the year. Doug Peterson's done a great job with this team. They spent a ton of money last offseason. Credit to Shad Khan. You know, we see a lot of cheap owners out there. I see owners that won't go and make the bold moves. The Jaguars made a ton of them. And now they find themselves in the 20th week of the NFL season. You call it the divisional playoff round. I call it week 20 in the NFL. So the Jaguars, no pressure. What about the Kansas City Chiefs? It's a little while. You know, that Super Bowl trophy, you start looking into it, it starts smirking back at you after a while. It's been a minute for the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. A lot of guys have won 1 Super Bowl. What would it mean to win 2? Still, all that being said, Kansas City is still, you know, such a popular team. Everybody loves the pieces. Andy Reid, who doesn't love Andy Reid? Patrick Mahomes, a superstar professional athlete. Not just a superstar in the NFL, but a superstar that transcends the NFL. His popularity knows no boundaries. If they were to lose this week, and I don't think they will, but if they were to lose this week, I don't think you'd be talking about massive changes in Kansas City. You might tweak some things. But Kansas City is going to be in the mix for many years as long as you have that head coach quarterback combination. And, of course, health. By the way, the line on that game right now, Jaguars plus 8.5 and plus 350 on the money line. 52.5 is the total. The Giants and the Eagles in Philadelphia. Now, this is one where I think we have a contestant. Step right up, step right up. Great prizes. Philadelphia Eagles. Could they be? I think they're on the short list of teams that can't afford a loss this week. When you win 14 games, when you put yourself in the position this organization did to win a Super Bowl, when Jalen Hurts is, hearing the MVP talk, not that he's going to win it, but he's certainly in the conversation. When you do the things Philadelphia did during the regular season, and again, I didn't go crazy about their schedule. I'm not one of these people that is bought into the idea that the Eagles are the best team in the NFC, despite the fact, or the best team in the NFL, just despite their record. I have said for many, many weeks, going back well past the first half of the season, I have long said that while I think Philadelphia is really good, I don't believe they're as good as San Francisco, and I can even make the argument that they're not as good as Dallas. But now you're going to find out, because you have the Giants, who I think are as supremely confident right now as they have been this entire season. And I think all the pressure is on Philadelphia to win this game this week. The Philadelphia Eagles this year were a plus 133 in point differential. There was only one team that was better than that, and it was Buffalo at plus 169. Oh, I'm sorry, two teams. San Francisco was plus 173. So Philadelphia was the third best in that regard. Not that that's everything, but when you have such a disparity between the Eagles at plus 133 and the Giants at minus 6, and Philadelphia beating the Giants both times they played this year, the first time at Giants Stadium, which is now called MetLife Stadium, I mean, it was embarrassingly bad for the Giants. It might have been the low point of this season for the Giants. Tough to beat a team 3 times in a year. I think there's a lot of pressure on Philadelphia. The Giants are plus 7.5, plus 290 on the money line. 48.5 is your total. So we'll come back to the Eagles, because I think they are in the conversation. Cincinnati and Buffalo. I think there's a lot of pressure on both of these teams for obvious reasons. Cincinnati was in the Super Bowl a year ago and lost. To lose in this game and go home in the divisional round after reaching the Super Bowl last year, it would have to be considered a disappointing season for the Bengals. And on the other hand, you have Buffalo, who finds itself in a similar situation to the way it did last year, playing a very difficult opponent in the divisional round. And again, with Buffalo having done so many of the things it has this season, it's hard to look at Josh Allen and this team and say there isn't pressure and there aren't higher expectations than just making the divisional round after you go 13-3 and boast the second best point differential. And you were 7-1 at home. Only loss was against Minnesota, and that was a hell of a football game. So I think those are two teams you could certainly put in the conversation. And then there's Dallas and San Francisco. By the way, Cincinnati plus 5.5 in that game, plus 200. 48.5 is the total. Then there is Dallas and San Francisco, the final game of the divisional playoff weekend on Sunday night. NBC be there. Cowboys plus 3.5, the money line plus 154, the total 45.5. So it has gone up a half a point since we last spoke to you yesterday. That game now at 3.5. And look, I think there is no question a ton of pressure on both of these teams. But in terms of who needs it most, again, the question I asked isn't who needs it most. The question I asked isn't, who has the most pressure on them. The question I have asked is, who has the most pressure? Or isn't, let me try that again. The question isn't who has the most pressure. It is who needs the win the most. What franchise needs the win the most? You could always make the argument that it's Dallas because they are one of the pressure cookers of the NFL under the watchful eye of Jerry Jones. And there's always going to be the question, is Mike McCarthy going to be gone if they lose or if they get blown out in this game? And then you have San Francisco. Best point differential in the league. Brock Purdy has yet to lose a game in his NFL career. He is 6-0. Best defense in football. And certainly a team that has Super Bowl aspirations, whether it was going to be Trey Lance this year, Jimmy Garoppolo, or Brock Purdy. This team felt like it had a potential trajectory to the Super Bowl. So I think both of these teams could be in the conversation. But if you ask me to pick one, I'm probably going with San Francisco, given what they accomplished during the season. Which team do you think has the most pressure? We've narrowed it down now. Philadelphia, Cincinnati, Buffalo, San Francisco. I want to know what you think. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. Which organization needs a win the most this weekend in the divisional playoff round? 1-800-224-2004. I'm Jason Page. We're just getting started. Good to have you with us tonight. Austin Rodriguez producing and engineering. It's the Cash In on SportsMap Radio. Let me know if you're having any issues with the phones. They should be working. All right, this cannot possibly be true. Somebody tweeted today, is this true? You know, everybody ever seen Tiger King? I know the story behind it. I haven't seen it, but I know the whole story. Did you see? They're saying Carol Baskin's missing husband from Tiger King that Joe Exotic claimed she allegedly fed to tigers has been found alive in Costa Rica, according to the Department of Homeland Security. It's crazy. Baskin told ITV in an interview that a special agent in charge of Department of Homeland Security provided a letter to detectives saying that her ex-husband, Don Lewis, is alive and well, says she still hasn't spoken to him. Wow. That's some crazy stuff, if true. See? Can't believe everything you hear on TV or watch on TV or read on the interwebs or any of that stuff. How do the Knicks lose to the Wizards? The Knicks are such an enigma. They lose more games at home to bad teams. The Knicks they're like the opposite of the Golden State Warriors. They're good on the road and they suck at home. I mean, you cannot lose at home to the Washington Wizards. You just can't. But they did. That's why they're the Knicks. Looks like I turned the game off because I was getting ready to come on the air. And I'm sure the ending was on behind me, but because I'm paying attention to you guys, I didn't see it. But it looks like Atlanta beat Dallas tonight, 130-122. Good win for the Hawks on the road. I think Luka had 19 in the first quarter and then really slowed down after that. But yeah, Washington beat the Knicks tonight, 116-105. Our live betting game of the night is just underway in Denver. Every time the Nuggets are on in our late window, they are always beating the snot out of somebody. Just every time. Denver is taking on the Timberwolves tonight, 9-4 in the early going there. Timberwolves plus 10.5 on the live betting line, plus 420 on the money line, 237.5 is the total. Clippers trail the Jazz in Utah 68-56. The Clippers just continue to be an enigma this year. Plus 12.5 to the Clippers on the live spread. 240.5 is your live total. Hornets lead the Rockets. Rockets trying to avoid like their 75th straight loss. I mean, I know. It isn't that many, but it's what, 13, I think, in a row they've lost in Houston? Let's see. Houston has lost 11 in a row. Sorry. So they're trying to snap an 11-game winning streak tonight. Doesn't look like it's going to happen. Rockets trail at home to the Hornets 120-116 with 16 seconds to go in the fourth quarter. So that's about all you got. There is one other late game tonight. And man, it is a really late game. Is this possible? Lakers and Kings? They don't tip off for another 20-plus minutes. Lakers and Kings, that should be a good game. Assuming everybody's playing for both teams, which you could never assume, and I didn't obviously go and research which guys are playing against which. The question of the hour, 1-800-224-2004. We've also put the poll up on Twitter. You can find me there at the back page. Again, on Twitter, at the back page. We've put up our question of the night there. And it's an easy one. It's a fun one. Who needs the win the most this weekend? Philadelphia, Buffalo, Cincinnati, or San Francisco? You can weigh in on the phones as well. 1-800-224-2004. From anywhere in America, 800-224-2004. Which team needs a win the most this weekend? And we went through it in the first segment of the show. If you ask me, if I have to narrow it down to one, if I'm going to ask the poll question, I guess I have to give an answer to it, don't I? If you ask me which team I think absolutely needs it the most, it's probably Philadelphia to validate what they did during the regular season. You know, they're healthy. Jalen Hurts isn't on the injury report. I mean, it would seem logical to say that they probably need the victory more than anybody. You know, Cincinnati and Buffalo, you can imagine being back in this position for many years to come. The 49ers are going to be in this position for many years to come. But there are some people that look at this Philadelphia team, and while it's good, they wonder, is it really a 14-3 team? You go and look at some of the teams they played throughout the season. And the point differential was really good. But I've never come away from any of their games feeling like they were inevitable. Whereas I can watch Cincinnati, Buffalo, the 49ers. I've watched those teams throughout the entire season and felt like at worst they were Super Bowl caliber teams. The shame of it, Kansas City included in that conversation. The problem for Kansas City, Cincinnati, and Buffalo is they all have to play each other. That's the problem, is you have so much talent in the AFC that basically three of the 4 or 5 best teams in the league all reside in the AFC, and they can't all get to the AFC title game. So somebody was going to get bounced early, and it's either going to be Cincinnati or Buffalo. But both of those teams, let's be honest about it. Cincinnati, Buffalo, and Kansas City. You put them on a neutral field in the Super Bowl with anybody from the NFC, and at worst, it should be a pick'em game. I mean, that's how talented those three teams are and have proven themselves to be throughout the entire season. 1-800-224-2004 is the phone number. 800-224-2004. And again, you can hit me up on Twitter at the back page. Again, on Twitter at the back page. And people are weighing in on the poll question. We'll keep an eye on it throughout the show as we go through the night. Sorry, I was laughing. Something came across my Twitter feed. It's not important enough to mention it to you guys. You'll just have to imagine that it was rather funny. Coming up in the next hour of the show, we will be joined by Matt Verderam from Fansided. Does a terrific job. National NFL writer for Fansided. Might have a couple other guests as we go through the show tonight. We have some calls out. People just, for some reason, people just return calls later and later these days. I reach out to so many people throughout the course of the day, and they'll all reach out to me during the show and be like, oh, yeah, I could do it. Sorry I didn't get back to you sooner. And then we're just trying to kind of squeeze them around and figure out where we could put them. I was supposed to go watch golf today. Not that there's anything being played, but they had the American Express Championship is going on this week here in my backyard in Palm Springs, California. It's the first stateside PGA event of 2023. A lot of the best players in the world are here, but this used to be an event that Phil Mickelson typically hosted, and he's not going to be here this year, obviously, because he's not on the PGA Tour anymore. But a lot of great golfers are. So I was supposed to go out today and cover some, go and check out some press conferences, watch guys hit balls on the range, that sort of thing. And I got to be honest, I didn't go, and I don't feel that bad about it. No, it's nice to talk to PGA Tour professionals. It's nice to go ask questions at press conferences. It's nice to go grab a bite to eat, hang out with other media folk and be seen and all that stuff. That's all fun, but I'll go tomorrow when they're actually playing golf. They're actually playing golf that matters, not some practice round or hitting balls on the range. I'll go out there tomorrow. So we'll go and check that out tomorrow and see what's going on out at PGA West. Yeah, we'll go do that. It's gonna be a good time. So we'll go and check out the golf tomorrow. Jalen Green tonight, by the way, man, he is so good. 41 points for Jalen Green tonight. 5 rebounds, 7 assists, 16 of 24 shooting in the NBA, where I think our producer engineer Austin Rodriguez, who's working on the show tonight, could probably put up 10 points in an NBA game these days. Just about anybody could. And before you say no, Austin, I got faith in you. I think you can shoot some underhanded granny style free throws if you had to. I think you can make a few. I think you can make a few shots in this NBA where nobody is playing defense for the first 42 out of the first 48 minutes of an NBA game. I think he's all right. Oh, see? Look at that. You got a little confidence. See? I like that. I won't call it arrogance, but I'll give you credit there. You sounded like you were pretty confident you could make some free throws. Did you play any sports in high school? Oh, boy. Yeah, that was it, huh? It's easier to talk about sports than it is to play them, isn't it? Yeah, I agree. That's why I do it. We're coming back. I got to tell you this story about Rafael Nadal because we were talking about it on the show last night on SportsMap Radio. Be right back. Thanks for the coffee, Coke, honey. Hello? Thank you. History-making night in the NHL tonight.
Alex Killorn back to Cirelli, broken up by Bear. who then tripped over the Lightning player. There's a nice move, and Stamkos scores! Goal number 500, and the Lightning are all going to come off the bench. Steven Stamkos, at 4:40 of the first period, gets his milestone goal. He is the third active player to get 500, and the 47th in NHL history.
There you go. 500 goals for his career for Steven Stamkos. That's pretty amazing. You know, I think sometimes we lose sight. You know, numbers can sometimes trivialize, or I think we lose perspective when we simply look at numbers. Think about that. Think about the NHL. I don't know how many guys have scored 500 goals in the history of the NHL. Anybody who knows me knows the NHL is not my number one sport. It's not that I don't like it. It's not that I don't appreciate it. It's not my thing. I've got limited bandwidth, what I can sort of keep tabs on. So it's just not my number one thing. But without question, when you think about 500 goals in your NHL career, it's pretty amazing. I mean, 500 goal club in the NHL. 500 goal club NHL. Now I got to look it up. List of players with 500 goals in the NHL. 46 players have scored at least 500 goals, and now 47 with Steven Stamkos having accomplished the feat tonight. There you go. Ties Lanny McDonald for number 46 on the NHL's all-time goal-scoring list. Next up in his sights will be Joe Mullen. I didn't realize Joe Mullen had 502 goals for his career. Amazing. Of course, the one everybody's got an eye on right now is Alex Ovechkin, who has 810 goals. He is 84 behind the I was going to say the great one. That's what happens when you have Wayne Gretzky on the brain and you say great one. The great one, Wayne Gretzky, 894 for his career. So pretty amazing, though. Congratulations to Steven Stamkos, 47th player in NHL history to get to 500 goals in his career. Only the third active player with 500. Who else is active? Ovechkin and Sid the Kid. Let me tell you, if teams would have signed Jaromir Jagr, if somebody would sign Jaromir Jagr, I'm convinced. I don't even know how old he is. Jaromir Jagr could still score 20 goals now, and he's 50 years old. I think so. That dude is a just like marvel to watch what he is still able to do even at this age out on the ice. You know, he looks like he should be playing in like the YMCA hockey league, and he's still playing. Yeah, I think he's playing for Kladno. Yep. Spends most let's see, at the age of 50. Spends most games in the dressing room. Jagr admitted he was considering retirement, being too busy with the team administration and lacking the motivation for the physically demanding game, saying that at most he'll have to force himself to go play in the alumni game of the 2023 NHL Winter Classic featuring the Penguins. I guess he played in it. I don't know. But Jagr is just amazing. Absolutely amazing. One of the best pure goal scorers. I did watch a lot more hockey when I was younger and when Jagr was younger, and just amazing what he was able to do throughout his illustrious NHL career. 1-800-224-2004 is the phone number, 800-224-2004. You can feel free to hit me up on Twitter, at The Back Page, again on Twitter, at The Back Page. Coming up in 10 minutes, Stephen A. Smith steps in it again. And you can set your watch by it. If he's opening his mouth, there's a good chance he's going to say something stupid that he has to apologize or be forgiven for. It's just, he is, you know what Stephen A. Smith is becoming? I'm about to use the analogy that you never want to hear. You know what Stephen A. Smith is becoming? He's becoming the Nickelback of sports media people. You know when Nickelback became unpopular and why the tide turned on them? It wasn't because their music wasn't good. I like Nickelback. I've seen them 3 times in concert. Why people got sick of Nickelback was the fact that they were on every radio station all the time. You couldn't escape Nickelback. Well, y'all just want to be big rock stars. You'd hear it on every single radio station. Every hour, on the hour, you were getting Nickelback. And that's why people turned on Nickelback. That's what happens. They love you at first, then you're overplayed. The market is oversaturated with your work, and people get tired of you. That's Stephen A. Smith. ESPN just hasn't caught the hint yet that everybody is tired of Stephen A. Smith. And people are like, well, people watch him, or people listen to him, or people check out his podcast. Yes, because you can't avoid the man. He's everywhere all the time. But I'll get to that coming up in 9 minutes. Was that a little too much of a tease? Austin, did I go a little too far with that tease? Did I give away a little too much of what I'm going to talk about? Okay. All right. Because I do still have more. Because I haven't told you how he put his foot in his mouth again. But you're going to find out coming up in 9 minutes on the program. Next hour, the person you would least expect. The person you would least expect to say something brilliant as it pertains to Aaron Rodgers said something brilliant about Aaron Rodgers. Also something interesting about Tom Brady. I'll tell you who this mind-blowingly intelligent man is coming up in the next hour of the program. But I said I wanted to talk about something involving Rafael Nadal. And the reason I bring this up is it's a continuation of something we talked about on the show last night. In the final hour of the show, we were monitoring Mackenzie McDonald, unheralded Mackenzie McDonald's match against Rafael Nadal, which was being played at the Australian Open, the second round match. Now, McDonald won the first set 6-4. Then in the second set, I think he was up 5-3, and Nadal suffered an injury to his hip. He went and got treatment on it, came back out, but clearly wasn't the same player and was struggling physically throughout the entire match. He wound up getting beaten in straight sets. Rafa Nadal out in the second round at the Australian Open, a tournament that is just losing appeal by the second when you consider the fact that there's no Nick Kyrgios. Now Nadal is out. Obviously, Federer has retired. The men's side is just no Alcaraz, the number one player in the world. The men's side of the Australian Open is just it's terrible. But the more interesting story about Nadal's loss last night are the revelations that came out after the match was done. Nadal told the media he intentionally ignored requests from his wife, who was actually seen sobbing in the stands. She was actually crying. His wife was seen in tears in the crowd as the realization set in that Nadal wasn't going to be able to get back into this match. And Nadal revealed after the match he intentionally ignored requests from both his wife and coaches to retire during the match. And I don't mean retire as in the end of his career, but stop the match and concede that, he was hurt and wasn't going to be able to finish. Now, I did not know this until I read this story tonight. But the 36-year-old Nadal, and everybody has seen the bevy of injuries that he has suffered throughout his career. Nadal, I did not know this, has never walked off the court during a match because of injury. Ever. He's never retired hurt during a match in his entire career. So he refused to quit. And you could see him just hobbling around on the court. He was a shell of the Rafa Nadal that you know. Nadal said he intentionally stopped communicating with his team because he knew they were pleading with him to quit. He said, yeah, I consider all the time stopping, but I didn't ask the physiotherapist at the end. He said, after the match, I have to know myself, and I tried to keep playing without increasing the damage. He said, I was not able to hit the backhand at all. I was not able to run for the ball, but I just wanted to finish the match. That's it. He said, I'm old enough to make my own decisions. I didn't want to retire to be the defending champion here. I didn't want to leave the court with a retirement. Wow. And that is the story of Rafa Nadal that they will tell when his career is done. We're back with more on the Cash In on SportsMap Radio. Wake up call. $15 till the top of the hour. SportsMap Radio, the SportsMap Radio app with me, Jason Page. The cash in. LeBron off to a fast start tonight at home against the Kings. I wish that was the late game that was on TV. That's the game I'd like to be watching. All due respect to the T-Wolves and the Nuggets, I want to watch LeBron every chance I get. That's my thing. Give me some of that. So let's talk a bit about Stephen A. Smith, who I brought up in the last segment and said I wanted to get into here for a few minutes. You always know when Stephen A. Smith is in trouble for something because his lips are moving. And that's just essentially the way it is, because Stephen A. Smith now has gotten to the point where you cannot, again, he is the Nickelback of the year 2023 in sports media. You cannot turn to a dial anywhere and not have to hear Stephen A. Smith. You can do everything you can. I could turn on MSNBC and there's Stephen A. Smith talking in the 11th hour with whoever the latest host is since Stephanie Rule, since Brian Williams left. Stephanie Rule is very good. I just couldn't remember her name. You turn on Fox News and there's Stephen A. Smith. You turn on ESPN in the morning, there's Stephen A. Smith. Turn on the NBA game on Friday night, there's Stephen A. Smith. You cannot avoid the human being. And what happens eventually when you get to that point is you actually wind up weakening your brand. Because the more things you talk about, you start to get exposed. And I said, it's also akin to the Nickelback syndrome. You know, Nickelback was a great band when they first came out. Had some big hits, all that stuff. Then they were everywhere. They were in concert everywhere. They were singing your national anthem at football games, your national anthem at baseball games. You're getting them on TV. You all want to be just a big rock star. They're on your radio every 5 minutes. You can't turn the station without hearing Nickelback. And before you know it, everybody hates Nickelback because they're tired of hearing them. That is Stephen A. Smith. The only people that haven't gotten the memo is ESPN, which just continues to put the man out there. And you know what? I'll say this for him. He's got to have thick skin because he gets so much hatred in the Twitter sphere and in social media, but it's his own fault because he insists on being everywhere and giving an opinion on everything, even things he really shouldn't be giving opinions on, such as this. He was on the Sherry Shepherd show. I don't know where you find that on the dial, so I'm not going to pretend to know where that show is. Oh, Sherry Shepherd show. She used to be on, didn't she used to be on The View or something like that? Or was she on The Talk? One of those female talking head shows that's on in the late morning hours. So here's Stephen A. Smith on with Sherry talking about the Super Bowl halftime show. Take a listen.
One thing I do know is who's going to be in the Super Bowl. I know this. Rihanna.
Really?
Rihanna.
Right.
Rihanna is going to be. I'm very excited. Are you excited for this halftime show?
I don't want to say I'm not excited. She's fantastic. That's
Yes.
not where I'm going with this.
Okay, where you going?
Ladies and gentlemen, she's a lot of things. She's spectacular, actually.
Yes.
And congratulations on new mamahood.
Yes. I sense
There's
but-
one thing she's not.
Uh-huh.
She ain't Beyonce.
I know she's not Beyonce, but you know, wait a minute, hold up.
Oh, boy. Oh, he got booed by the audience. And that's a no-no when you're in a live studio audience, to boo the main guest on the show. Oh, he got some boos. As he should. Because here's the thing. And look, Sherry Shepherd asks the question, and all he has to do is give the sort of middle-of-the-road answer. But when your entire life is spent pitting people against each other, Good versus bad. This player versus that player. This team versus that team. Crushing this player because you don't like something he said. Crushing this guy because you don't like something that he did. When that is your entire life, you can't just simply take the fact that Rihanna's playing at the Super Bowl and say, man, she's awesome. I can't wait to see it with Coldplay and all this. You know, Super Bowl halftime shows have been this, that. There's so many ways he could have answered that question that would not have made him put his foot in his big mouth. And he gave the one answer out of 100 different answers he could have gave that got him in trouble.
The only reason I brought up Beyonce.
Man almost caused a riot.
Because Beyonce recently performed at the Super Bowl.
Yes, she did.
And with and without Bruno Mars and Coldplay.
Okay, so Beyonce performed, but she's had her time. Now there's Rihanna. Rihanna's coming back. She got that extra of motherhood. I like Rihanna.
You know what? I like television. I like a lot of talent out there. There's some spectacular females in television. I just want to say that. Everybody ain't sharing.
Okay, everybody's not sharing.
That's not throwing shade on them. That's appreciating their greatness, but understanding there's levels, you know?
Okay.
And Rihanna's music is fantastic. She's great.
And he just doesn't get it. He just doesn't get it. Not only does he make the dumb comment, but he doubles down on the dumb comment. She gives him a chance to back out. And he just keeps going with the dumb comment. This is why, you know, I had an old boss. It literally, I really shouldn't say this. Nice gentleman. I've brought him up. I've mentioned him on the air before, so it's not like I'm breaking new ground here. He was our program director when I worked at NBC Sports Radio. Nice human being, but dumb as a box of rocks. But he used to say something that I think was very apropos for this particular thing. And it's called stay in your lane. He used to always say that. If you brought up something to him about another show or another, he'd always say, stay in your lane. Just full speed ahead. Keep the wheels moving and stay in your lane. I mean, he was typical middle management radio guy that I've worked for 100 different times over the course of my career. And that is the problem. Stephen A. Smith doesn't know to stay in his lane. He thinks everything is his lane. And eventually, enough people turn against you. And eventually, enough people start tuning you out. And eventually, you wind up right back where you were at the beginning of your career, which is just writing about the NBA somewhere because people just get tired of you. So Stephen A. Smith had to do the old mea culpa today on social media.
I just got out of First Take, and I saw some headline that's circulating all over the place about my quote that Rihanna ain't Beyonce. See, you know, I'm going to own it. I know what y'all trying to do, but I'm going to own it because I get paid to speak for a living, so I need to be more careful. I want Rihanna to know you're a superstar. You're sensational. You're spectacular. You're no joke. And you are a worthy person to be doing the Super Bowl halftime show. Having said all of that, I was answering a question from Sherry Shepherd, who took over the Wendy Williams show and now got her own thing going, and I'm very proud of her. And she asked me with a bunch of sisters in the audience what she asked me. Now, I'm a Beyonce fan. I think that Beyonce is not only a phenomenal performer, the phenomenal performer. And the only reason any kind of comparison came into play is because Beyonce performed at halftime of the Super Bowl, not just by herself, but one separate Super Bowl performance with Bruno Mars and Coldplay. And I thought those were two of the greatest shows that I've ever seen. So what I'm saying is anybody has to measure up to that. Last year, with Snoop and Dre and Mary J and Eminem, I was like, Bruno Mars, Beyonce, Coldplay, big time. They got to measure up to that. Anybody who does Super Bowl or Super Bowl halftime show, forever I'm going to say Beyonce, Bruno Mars, Coldplay, and then Beyonce by themselves. Michael Jackson could still be alive, and I would say it's got to measure up to that.
God, I can't. I just can't. I can't. He just doesn't get it. Not everything has to be pitted against one another. He's such a clown. He's still talking, by the way, on the video that I just shut off. Another hour of the cash in. It's right around the corner. He'll probably still be talking. Oh my God. They went after him. I mean, it was bloody. Like, he had to come out and put out this 3.5 minute video today, basically trying to walk back the comments. Yeah. So, but it was, it's like there's no reason to knock down Rihanna just to make, it's just, there's no reason. You can like Beyonce, but you don't have to take a shot at Rihanna by saying, well, she's no Beyonce. It's just unnecessary. It's idiotic. I feel so much dumber after listening to these guys' promos. I really do. I feel so much dumber. So we have a guest at 30 minutes past this hour. That'll join me. That'll be part of the podcast. It's not a 2-for-1. It's just that segment. I might have a different guest in the last hour. I just don't know yet. Another hour of the show starts right now on SportsMap Radio and the SportsMap Radio app. Good to have you with us. Our friends in Dallas listening on 97.1 The Freak. Good to have you with us. The telephone number, 1-800-224-2004 from anywhere in America, 800-224-2004. Hit me up on the Twitter at the back page. Again, on Twitter at the back page. Our question of the night, who needs a win the most this weekend in the NFL playoff division round? One team. Who needs a win the most? We've got it up on Twitter at the back page. If you want to go and answer right there, you can. Our choices are Philadelphia, Buffalo, Cincinnati, and San Francisco. Who needs a win the most this weekend? Those are the four teams that I view as needing a win the most. I had to narrow it down to four. And for me, it's Philadelphia. Because I think they have to validate what they did in the regular season. They haven't even played a postseason game yet because they obviously had the first round bye, as did Kansas City. And as much as we might want to say, well, Kansas City, best record in the AFC, first round bye, all of that stuff. No, I don't think it's Kansas City because they've won a Super Bowl recently. And I don't think anybody thinks if they lose, if they were to lose to Jacksonville, yes, it would obviously be a gigantic upset. It'd be the biggest upset of the weekend. But that team has bought, they've got some credit. They've got some fan credit stored away. So I don't think they're in a position where if they were to lose this weekend, their whole world would be turned upside down. There'd be massive changes within the organization, anything like that. So I think it's Philadelphia, Buffalo, Cincinnati, or San Francisco. Let me know what you think. 1-800-224-2004 from anywhere in America. I know some of our Dallas audience might want to say it's Dallas, and you're welcome to throw that one in yourself if you want to. However, I don't think Dallas is the team that needs it the most. I think it's Philadelphia because of what they did during the regular season. But again, I know people in Dallas might feel differently, and if you got an opinion on it from anywhere in America, in fact, you could weigh in right now. 1-800-224-2004. So I wouldn't typically, and this kind of contradicts something I said just last night or the night before on the show about the fact that Rob Gronkowski is a lot smarter than people give him credit for. And he really is. He's a lot brighter than people like to portray him as. So this may come off as being a tad bit contradictory in terms of what I said about him last night on the show. But Rob Gronkowski might have made one of the more interesting points that I've heard about the most recent diatribes from Aaron Rodgers on the Pat McAfee show. When he was asked about Aaron Rodgers and the recent comments he made about still being able to win an MVP. And if you heard it last night on the show, we played the comments from Aaron Rodgers, where he said not only does he think he could still play at a high level, he thinks in the right situation he could win an MVP. So Gronk was on with my old colleague Kay Adams on FanDuel's Up and Adams show. Gronk was asked about Kay Adams, who he was asked about Kay Adams, about the four-time league MVP Aaron Rodgers, saying he thinks he could win another MVP in the right situation. And Gronk said this, and I think this is, again, I didn't even notice this last night when I heard the comments. It didn't hit me this way. But now that I hear him say it, I'm like, oh, and the light bulb goes off in your head. He says, quote, "I'm totally fine with everything he said except one major part," Gronk said. And that's the MVP again. It's just that I think I could win another Super Bowl, and that would have been totally fine. See, he thinks instead of talking about the individual award that Rodgers could win, and this is a great point brought up by Gronk. I wonder if next week Pat McAfee and A.J. Hawk, in the middle of drooling all over Aaron Rodgers, and go, when Aaron Rodgers goes, but, and they go, he said but, because it's like, a frat house when he's on the show. Everything's so funny. I wonder when they have on Aaron Rodgers next week, if McAfee and A.J. Hawk will actually say to him, Aaron, some people think the fact that you brought up the fact that, you think you could still play at a high level and win an MVP again, sounds a tad bit like you're all about, you, instead of being about the team. Because to me, if I'm Aaron Rodgers, the only reason I talk about this with Tom Brady all the time. The only reason Tom Brady's going to come back and play next year is if Tom Brady thinks he can win another Super Bowl. But you're hearing Aaron Rodgers say the only reason, or the reason that he at least mentioned in that answer that he would be looking to come back, or one of the things he'd be looking at when he comes back, is the idea that he still thinks he's good enough to win an MVP. Well, who cares? Who cares? You think a team's bringing you in just to prove you can win an MVP? No, they want you to be able to win a Super Bowl. And that is sort of a red flag answer that he gave to Pat McAfee. Gronk continued, why? I could absolutely picture Gronk saying this. Why are you thinking MVP? Don't you want Super Bowls? Super Bowls are, I think, 5 times greater than an MVP award. Wow. Listen to Gronk in his own words.
He said, do I think I can still play? Of course. Can I play at a high level? The highest. I think I can win MVP again in the right situation. Is the right situation in Green Bay or somewhere else? I'm not sure. I don't think you should shut down any opportunities. I think there's more conversations to be had. What's your take on that?
I'm totally fine with everything he said, except one major part, and that's the MVP again. It's just that I think I could win another Super Bowl, and then that would have been totally fine. Bro, why are you thinking MVP? Don't you want Super Bowls? Super Bowls are I think 5 times greater than an MVP award. We all know that you won the MVP a few times now, but everyone would know even more how many more Super Bowls you've won than MVP. So that's why I'm just a little confused about that. About that quote that he just had. I mean, it should be Super Bowls. You should never be thinking the MVP when Super Bowls are twice.
And you've won 4. He's won 1, and a lot of people on Twitter and a lot of people are saying Brady wouldn't Brady wouldn't say that. Brady would say I want my team, I want that. And both these guys are going to have to make decisions.
There you go. Kay Adams jumping on Gronk's bandwagon too when it comes to Rodgers. But it's true. It's a very cogent point brought up by Gronk. The idea that it's about winning Super Bowls. I mean, go ask Dan Marino. If he would trade MVP awards for a Super Bowl ring. That the one thing he could not get in his career was a Super Bowl ring. He threw for 61,000 yards. He went to 9 Pro Bowls. He had 13 3,000-yard seasons. Back at a time when that actually, meant something. But go ask Dan Marino what it would mean if he would give up that 84 MVP award in 5 seconds if he could have 1 Super Bowl. I think he'd give up even his Hall of Fame honors if you told him he could have just 1 Super Bowl. Because it's the one thing when anybody ever talks about Dan Marino, the one thing they talk about is couldn't win a Super Bowl. Go ask any great player. Think of Dan Fouts, who was a terrific player in the league. Offensive Player of the Year in 1982. 6-time Pro Bowler. Dan Fouts is a guy that if you asked him, if you could give all that up just for one Super Bowl, would you take it? In a heartbeat. A lot of guys around the league that, great players around the league that were never able to win a Super Bowl, that got so close and couldn't put their hands on it. But not Aaron Rodgers. Nope. He's all about those individual accolades. 1-800-224-2004 is Gronk, right? 800-224-2004. You want to tweet at the show? Go ahead and do it. Hit me up there at the back page. Again, on Twitter. At the back page. But interesting thoughts from Gronk. But that wasn't the only thing he talked about that was of interest to me. And I want to get to what else he said on the other side because Kay Adams asked him about Tom Brady. And we'll get to that coming up in a couple of minutes. Later on in this hour, we'll be joined by my buddy Matt Verderam. Does a great job over at Fansided on the NFL, their national NFL writer. So we'll talk with Matt Verderam coming up in about 20 minutes here on the show. But stick around. Gronk wasn't done when it came to talking about quarterbacks. Listen to what he said about Tom Brady next on the Cash In at SportsMap Radio. Hey, Austin. I just The telephone number is 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. And as always, you can tweet at the show as well, at The Back Page. Again, on Twitter, at The Back Page. We'll be joined coming up in a few minutes by Matt Verderam, who does a great job on the NFL for Fansided. Get some thoughts with him on some things going on around the league, namely this big divisional playoff weekend that's around the corner. I'm also curious to hear what he's hearing about what the Patriots plan to do with the offensive coordinator spot next year. I know it's not a topic you hear a lot about, but it was something I was thinking about today, and I said, Matt Verderam might know a few things about that. So we'll get into that coming up in a few minutes. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. And again, hit me up on Twitter as well, at The Back Page. Again, on Twitter, at The Back Page. We'll get your thoughts there. Dave in Connecticut. I'll get to the Gronk comments about Tom Brady coming up in a couple of minutes here. First, Dave in Connecticut, listening to the Cash In on SportsMap Radio. What's going on, Dave? I still would like to see him with the Jets. I would go absolutely nuts if he played for the if Tom Brady played for the Jets next year. There might be more teams out there than we actually think as possible destinations for both Brady and Rodgers. We haven't talked much about Washington as a possibility. They're going to need a quarterback. Who knows what the Patriots really think of Mac Jones going forward. Indianapolis is a team that I think some of these guys might be interested in. But I do think when we narrow it down, Carolina can't win. Carolina is not ready to win at all. I think the teams that are probably the front runners though are the Jets, the Raiders, and maybe Miami. I still think anything short, and I was talking about this with somebody else the other night. I think anything short of a Super Bowl, and San Francisco will be open to the idea of Rodgers or Brady because both of them have ties to the Bay Area. Nah, he won't be. Well, here's the thing. I mean, that's funny, but it won't happen because Garoppolo only did the deal for this year, so he won't be there next year. It would be Trey Lance or Brock Purdy that would be the backup there next year. Could you imagine being Brock Purdy, going undefeated in your regular season run, getting to the playoffs, winning a game there, and then having to be the backup next year or the backup to the backup next year? It could happen. Yeah. Sure. No, it's true. Did you have another point on the Cowboys? I don't think so. I think Daniel Jones, and I appreciate the call, I think Daniel Jones, with the performance he put out in Minnesota last week, I think Daniel Jones has got his contract. I mean, he'd have to go out and throw 4 interceptions, and the Giants get blasted by the Eagles. You know, he would have to play his worst game possible. He'd have to play the game that is the antithesis of the game he played in Minnesota last week. That's the only way that the Giants would consider not extending him. He's getting a new deal. Him and Dayball are connected at the hip now. He's going to get at least 3 more years. I've heard as much as 3 years, $75 million for Daniel Jones. That would not shock me. You know, go and look. The numbers don't lie. He doesn't turn the football over. He runs it as well as any quarterback in the league. For all the talk about these athletic quarterbacks and the Josh Allens and the Mahomeses and Lamar Jackson and all these guys, Daniel Jones runs it as good as any of them. Look at how many runs for first downs he has this year. Daniel Jones ain't going anywhere. I'm convinced of that. But Tom Brady is going somewhere because I don't see him going back to Minnesota next year. So the question was asked of Rob Gronkowski in an interview on the New Heights with Jason and Travis Kelce podcast this week. And Gronk said about Brady, because some people brought up the idea of Brady winding up back in New England for 2023. Finish where he started, right? Got his Super Bowl in Tampa Bay, proved his point. He could win without Belichick. Now you go and finish it off in New England. Gronk asked about that, said that he doesn't see that happening. Take a listen. Okay, it's not there. It always when you need the audio to be there, it's not there. Never fails.
If Tom ends up back there, I know we're still on this season.
Yeah, no, I think that.
See all the rumors.
Oh man, there's rumors he was going to the 49ers. There's rumors he's going back to Tampa, and but they're actually it's only between the 49ers, Tampa, and New England right now from what the media aspect. But I would 100% be surprised if he went back to New England. No doubt.
Yeah.
It would be nuts. I mean, that would be a crazy story, but I mean, I just don't really see that happening.
Braun went back to Cleveland.
But you never know. I'm not Tom. I'm just putting my analyzing skills out there, and I think, that would be a tough shot for him to go back to New England.
No, I hear you.
But it's open. It's open though. A tough shot.
All right.
We know that door's open.
Like shooting out of the woods in the golf game and hitting it.
That's about the Gronkest answer that you would expect to get from Rob Gronkowski in that situation. But I would be stunned if he ever went back to New England. And not that the bridge is burnt. I just think they've moved on from each other. There wouldn't be any value in going back to Tom Brady for 1 year. Not to mention the fact that I don't think Brady makes them a Super Bowl winner next year. And I think the only places Tom Brady has an interest in going to are places where he can be sold on the idea that he turns them into a Super Bowl contender. And there's only a few teams that do that. And I'm convinced that the Jets have to be one of them. I would not be shocked at all if he wound up with the Jets next year. And I think it would just be the greatest offseason and regular season ever. Just talking about the 2 times he'd be going up against Bill Belichick. Sign me up for Brady and the Jets. Could pull up. Hey, listen, Brett Favre left the Packers and found his way to the Jets eventually. Maybe Aaron Rodgers winds up with the Jets. Never know. They have a Super Bowl caliber defense. Matt Verderam joins us on the other side to talk of the NFL from Fansided. Cash in SportsMap Radio. Something I never do. Second coffee Coke tonight. Let's talk some basketball. Kurt Heelan joins us. Continuing halfway home on this Wednesday edition of the show. Always happy to bring in this guy and his insights. We were just talking off the air, so I'll just bring him in and continue the conversation, and you guys can listen in. He's Matt Verderam, NFL writer over at Fansided. He joins us on the Cash In on SportsMap Radio. So I was saying to Matt during the break that I think this will shock people for as long as I've been in sports media, which basically, other than 3 years of my career where I did news, I've been in the sports media since 97 when I was really since 95. I was 17 years old. So I think I've been to 3 NFL games in my whole life, and I think only one is media, and the Pro Bowl would probably be a second game that I covered as media. I mean, that's it. To me, the NFL experience live doesn't do a lot for me. I think it's so much better on TV. Whereas, I think baseball games live you get something out of it. I love baseball live. The NFL just doesn't do that for me. And I know you cover it for a living, so it's probably different for you. But, we were talking about going to the Super Bowl and watching the game and, everything that goes into it. And I said, of all the things that I've had a chance to cover or want to cover in my life, going to the Super Bowl isn't one of them.
Yeah, I mean, I've covered 3 of the last 4. The only one I didn't cover was the Chiefs-Bucks because of COVID. So didn't cover that game. But I covered Pats, Rams, Chiefs, Niners, Bengals, Rams, and now I'll be covering this one down in Glendale. It's fun. Like, I agree with you that the experience is better on TV. First of all, as someone who lives and breathes football, I would jump at the chance to go to a Super Bowl. I remember the first time I covered it, I took about 800 pictures before the game because I was 29. I'm like, they're never going to let me back here. Ever. Like the NFL,
they're going to figure it out. They're going to figure it out. I'm a fraud and I don't belong.
I remember being like borderline terrified of my credential not working, like because they scan it, and I remember being like, "Oh my god, this has got to be some kind of a joke." And then I got in there and they had my name on the the place, the press box. I'm like, I can't believe this. So now I'm used to. I guess I've gotten a little jaded. Although, but you know what? I love it. The one thing I'll say about it. You can feel the emotion, I feel like, so much better when you're at the game. I remember, for example, when the Chiefs were having their comeback against the 49ers in the fourth quarter, and you could just feel the air in the stadium. You're like, the Niners are in a lot of trouble. You could just feel it. I remember watching the Pats and the Rams and looking. I remember during TV timeout, I was looking over the sideline of the Rams. It was like the third quarter. And I turned to my coworker. I'm like, they're done. You can just see it in their faces. You see it in their body language. They are so out-coached in this game. They have no idea what to do. Goff is just throwing the ball willy-nilly into coverage. This is done. So I do, from a coverage standpoint, I enjoy it that way. Now, what people don't see is the 6 hours you have to be there before the game starts. And it's just Scott Hansen on the Jumbotron just being like, hey, everybody, excited for the Super Bowl? There's like vendors and 8 people there. That's God bless Scott Hansen. And Andrew Sicilian, all these guys have to do that stuff. That's tough. That's tough, Gabe.
Yeah, it is. Talking with Matt Verderam, NFL writer over at Fanside, does a terrific job and has joined us throughout this NFL season, even just before the NFL season started when we started going through some preview stuff. And one of the teams, credit to you, that you were high on were the Jaguars. You said you thought they could win that division, thought they could be a playoff team, and here they are, not just a playoff team, but thanks to Brandon Staley and the bumbling Los Angeles Chargers, they find themselves in the divisional round. Do you give them any chance in Kansas City?
Yes, but I think for them to win the game, they're going to have to play their absolute best game, and they're going to have the Chiefs make some mistakes in this game. I mean, I don't think they're going to go in there and beat the Chiefs just heads up, where you walk away and go, wow, it was an even turnover battle, and the Chiefs didn't miss a bunch of kicks. But that's the thing about the Chiefs this year. When the Chiefs play their best, I think they're the best team in the league. They can get to a level that is ungodly. But they turn the ball over a ton. They have the worst turnover ratio left of the 8 teams. And they are a disaster on special teams. Butker is one of the best kickers in the league over the last 5 years. He has been a mess this year. He was hurt week 1. He's never really been right. I mean, the leg is good in terms of the distance, but he's been weird. There's been a whole thing in Kansas City as to whether or not it's a holder, but the holder's been a holder for his entire career, or at least half his career, so I don't think it's a problem. That being said, these teams saw each other in week 10. Now, different team. Jacksonville's 3-6 at the time. The Chiefs gave up an onside kick to start that game, and they were -3 in the turnover ratio, and they were up 27-10 with 5 minutes left. The problem I think that Jacksonville has, and this is the part I can't get past for them, they're terrible against the pass. And they play a lot of single high safety, and they blitz a lot. And that is like the royal flush of death against Mahomes. That is just, if you said to me, what are the 3 things you can't do against him? Single high, blitzing a ton. I mean, that stuff is just death, and they don't get a ton of pressure. They're not a pressure team. So it's just, I don't think they're going to stop him. Even if they score, I think it's just going to be one of these things where he just drives them right back down the field. Jacksonville's going to have to do some funky stuff to win the game.
52.5 is the total. I kind of like the over.
I think the Chiefs by themselves are going to get into the mid to high 30s. So I would take the over. I think it's going to be one of those games where Jacksonville's in it for a while, and it's like 28 to 20, something like that. And you're like, all right, maybe. And then there's going to be one of those, either the Chiefs force a fumble or they pick off Lawrence. And unlike the Chargers, the Chiefs will finish the game. They'll just drive right down the field and put it in the end zone. And I think Jacksonville's real. Like you said, I like them going into the year. I think they're going to be back. But I think this is one of these games. It's kind of like all those years when teams go up to Foxborough, and you just kind of go, but it's been a fun year. But that's probably not going to work out. I kind of feel like that about this game. I just think it's a game where Jacksonville quits themselves well, and you're okay. That's a great year for them, but I would be pretty surprised if they went in there and actually full-on won the game.
Before I ask you about any of the other games, we asked a question at the top of the show tonight. It's over on my Twitter feed at the back page. Easy for me to say. But I'll ask you because I'm curious to see what you think of this. The team this weekend that needs the win the most. I got Philadelphia, Buffalo, Cincinnati, and San Francisco. Which team needs the win the most? I think it's Philadelphia. And I ran through my reasons why at the top of the show. But I think it's Philadelphia to validate what it is they did during this regular season and to sort of prove that, this isn't a fluke and that they're for real and Jalen Hurts is, the future of this franchise at the position. I think Buffalo, Cincinnati, San Francisco, you could all make arguments for them, but I think Philadelphia is the team that needs the win the most. What do you think?
I think it's a really interesting question, but I actually have a really, in my mind, a very definitive answer.
Okay.
I think it's the Bills. That team came into this year as the overwhelming favorite to win the Super Bowl. I mean, everybody, including me, picked them to win the Super Bowl. Next year, Allen's cap hit goes up like $25 million from what it is right now. They're going to start to lose pieces. The Chiefs and the Bengals, meanwhile, are in these positions where they can just load up next year. The Chiefs are in that position because they traded Tyreek Hill and they signed Tyrann Mathieu. The Bengals are in that position because Burrow's not getting paid the big money yet. Those two teams can do whatever they want this offseason. The Bills cannot. They're probably going to lose Poyer or Edmonds or both. I think if you're the Bills, there's a pressure on them. The team has never won a Super Bowl, obviously, famously. The Chiefs have won one. The Bengals have at least been to one. If the Bills don't get out of the divisional round, if they lose at home, and by the way, and we're going to get into that game, I'm sure, but I would be scared to death of this game if I was Buffalo. I think if they lose either this game or next weekend, if they go play Kansas City or Jacksonville, they lose. I just think that is a crushing ball. I mean, this is supposed to be their year. The Chiefs kind of retooling. The Bengals, I think a lot of people thought would take a step back. They didn't. If the Bills lose this game, you got back to the divisionals and you lost again. And I think it becomes a lot harder for them after this.
Matt Verderame, our guest NFL writer over at Fansided here on the Cash In on SportsMap Radio. What would make this time around different for the Giants in Philadelphia against the Eagles than the first two times around?
It's going to be a tough game for them, I think, in terms of schematically. But I'll say this for the Giants. I think they're really confident. And confidence goes a long way in life, whether it's in sports or just your everyday, walk of life. I think it matters in terms of your mindset. The Giants coming off of a win that, let's face it, coming into this year, what were you thinking about when you thought about the Giants? They're 4-13. New coach, new GM.
I had them with 5 wins. I had them with 5 wins.
Right. I think I had them with 6. This is a year you're like, look, they're going to rebuild. They're going to kind of take the dead wood out, so to speak. They're going to shape this in the image of Dable and of Shane and of Kafka and Martindale. And this team got to the playoffs and won a playoff game in the road. People can talk all they want about all the Vikings are frauds. That's fine. The Vikings were somewhat fraudulent. They still went on the road and won a playoff game. The enduring image of the Giants a year ago from right now.
Do me a favor, Matt.
The ball.
Matt, do me a favor. Yeah. Hold that thought. I want to hold you over for a few minutes. Come back on the other side. We'll finish the thought on that. A couple other questions for Matt Verderame from Fansided. Stay with us. Sorry about that, Matt. I forgot. See, we have what used to happen is I used to put you in the 45 segment, and we'd take you right up. We'd be able to go for 14 minutes at 40 after. They changed our clock. Continuing our conversation with Matt Verderam, NFL writer over at Fansided, holding him over because my clock management in the first segment sucked.
Yeah, Mike McDaniel.
Yeah, and Mike McDaniel. Yeah, I could do that. I could do Herm Edwards, like clock management. I've used that one before. So going through these games, Giants and Eagles, who you were talking about, all in all, though, you like the Eagles.
I do. I think the Eagles will win. I will say this. I think the Giants are going to cover the spread. What I was going to say,
they always do.
They hang around. I mean, it's funny though. Like, what is your enduring image of the Giants from a year ago? It's Joe Judge sneaking the ball out from like the 4-yard line, right on like 3rd and 9. The Giants come a hell of a long way from that. So, look, I think the one thing about Jacksonville and the Giants, I will say this: you're always dangerous in these types of games when you are playing with house money.
Yep.
When there is nothing you won't do because who's going to blame you? Like, if Jacksonville runs a fake punt on 4th and 29, you'll be like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like, whereas, like, if a team that has something to, like, if Philadelphia would never do that in this game, right? They're going to punt the ball. They're going to play very traditionally. I think the hard thing for the Giants is going to be, I think they're going to try to run the ball, ground and pound with Jones and with Barkley. The problem is going to be when it becomes 3rd and 8, and you're looking over and it's like, hey, there's James Bradbury, and there's Darius Slay, and we have Richie James. You got to win that. Like, you got to win that, like, multiple times. That's where I think it becomes hard. I think the Eagles, even though they're beat up, I think they win at something like, 24-20.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think it's going to be a close game. I think Giants definitely cover the 7.5 anyway that I'm looking at. Talking with Matt Verderam, NFL writer over at Fansided. Our conversation continues here in this final segment of the hour. Bengals and Bills, you talked about, obviously the pressure on Buffalo in this game. And Cincinnati's pissed. They felt like they got slighted by the league. They're playing with that little bit of a chip on their shoulder. And here's their opportunity again to sort of stick it to the man because they stuck it to him. This team is a supremely confident team. I wasn't blown away with the way they played against the Ravens, though.
No, they struggled with it. But I got to tell you, personally, I wasn't surprised. The Ravens and the Titans, when the Titans are healthy, are the same type of team. Like, if you're a high-flying, finesse-type team, they will drag you in the mud, and it turns into a fist fight. And the Ravens are really good at doing that. That's what they did with Cincinnati. They just ran the ball at them. They shortened possessions. Normally in a normal NFL game, you get 11, 12 possessions. Bengals can get like 7. So it makes it harder to pull away because you don't have to ball as much. That said, I did not think it was going to come down to a 98-yard scoop and score as Tyler Huntley's trying to stretch out from the 3-yard line. That was an interesting decision. That man's 10 feet tall. But I think, the weird thing about this game, the Bengals are really beat up front. But the Bills have been a mess trying to get pressure since Von Miller got hurt. I want to give credit, but I cannot remember who tweeted this out. Miller, since he got hurt, or actually, before he got hurt, the Bills were 4th in pressure rate this year. Before he got hurt, 4th in pressure rate with 4 men or less rushing the quarterback. Since he's gotten hurt, they're 27th.
Wow.
They just can't get home once they blitz. They just cannot do it. I mean, you can go back and look at that Miami game. Miami can't block anybody. I mean, Scott's tape stretched across the field would have more resistance than Miami. And the Bills just couldn't do anything unless they blitzed. And in this game, if they can't get to Burrow, they're going to get smoked because the Bengals, nobody's matching up with that receiving core. You've got to get pressure. It's how the Rams beat them in the Super Bowl. They finally they broke the dam in the second half. It's how Tennessee kept that game really close. If the Bills can't get to Burrow in this game, I don't care who's in the secondary, what scheme they play. It's not going to matter. Burrow's going to throw for 300-plus yards. They have to get home. And
that's the same, you could say the same argument if they do figure out a way to get past Cincinnati. The reason they got Von Miller was to chase down and make Patrick Mahomes' life miserable in the backfield. And they're going to have the same problem next week if that's the case.
Yeah, if those two teams advance, I agree with you. I mean, I went through the first 2.5 months of the year getting screamed at by every Chiefs fan I can find on Twitter because I was like, look, I think Von Miller's the difference. I thought he was the best signing of the offseason. I didn't care about the contract. Everybody went, Corral, 6 and 120. It's the NFL. That contract is 3 years and $50 million. So I had no problem with it, and he was great before he got hurt. Since he's been hurt, I think the Chiefs are a much better team than Buffalo right now. The other problem is right now, Buffalo cannot stop turning balls. I mean, it's just an unbelievable clip. And if they do that against Cincinnati or Kansas City, they're going to get boat raced. I mean, either one of those two teams, they'll just put it on them. Look, Buffalo's talented enough. If the Bills play really well the next 3 weeks, they're going to win the Super Bowl. But the Bills right now, while the Bengals are trending in the right direction, the Chiefs haven't played much better, especially defensively the last month or so. The Bills, to their credit, they're winning. They're on an 8-game win streak, but it's every game you watch it, and you're like, yeah, it doesn't look great, and it's a struggle.
Yeah, it's they're winning, but ... Cowboys and the 49ers. Look, if that, and I've had a difficult time, and we're on in Dallas on 97.1 The Freak down there. Great name for a station, by the way. We're on in Dallas, and even Dallas fans, when they've called in and tweeted in, they're kind of the mindset that it was impressive, but how much of it is Tampa Bay versus how much is us? Both things could be true, that Dallas played a great game and Tampa Bay was just Tampa Bay, which is what we thought they'd be. And how you sort of extrapolate that and say, how does it fit if they play that way against the 49ers? They can't play that way against the 49ers because the 49ers are supremely more talented than the Tampa Bay team they just played.
No doubt. And, I think sometimes with football, I think it's great that we have so many people who can analyze the game now, through social media and YouTube, and people add so much to the game the way they do it. I also think sometimes we almost overanalyze things. Like we get to a point where we're like, well, what are they going to do if they run cover 3 and then the Niners counter with mesh and throw a sail route on it? I don't know. Nobody knows. Like who the hell knows, right? Like who could possibly tell you what's going to happen? I think sometimes it just overcomplicates things. Look, this game to me comes down to one thing. Can that front for Dallas defensively, Armstrong, Parsons, Lawrence, can they make Brock Purdy make mistakes in this game? Can they pressure him in a way that he hasn't been pressured at this point? Because if you watch those games, I'm not hating on Brock Purdy. He's done an excellent job. I think he's earned that job, frankly. But he has not been challenged very much. I mean, they have played a lot of bad defenses since he's been there. I mean, bad defenses, including last weekend. But when Seattle got the occasional bit of pressure, he ran out of the back of the pocket, and he ran to the sideline, and he threw the ball away. And I want to know in this game, if you're Dan Quinn, my entire game plan is I'm going to put pressure on that kid any possible way I have to do it. I don't care how that comes. I want it to be with 4 guys. If it's got to be a 5th, fine. If it's got to be a 6th, fine. Whatever it takes, I've got to get some pressure. Now, of course, look, you can also get burned doing that. You have to start blitzing, especially with all the talent San Francisco has. But I think you have to make it about Purdy in this game. If you sit back and you can't get to him, they're going to lose. They're going to lose the game. The other thing is on offense for Dallas, if they're going to win, Dak doesn't have to be quite as good as he was in Tampa in terms of 335 and 4 touchdowns. But if there's one weak spot with the Niners, you can throw the ball in San Francisco. If you can block, you can throw the ball. And that's the big if.
Yeah, the Raiders did it. The Raider game a few weeks ago was a great example of that.
Yeah, Jarrett Stidham looks like God in cleats, right? Like the Chiefs went out there, and now granted, this was October, late October. The Chiefs won 44 on the Niners and had a missed field goal and 2 turnovers. Like, you can do it, but the key to it was the Chiefs blocked them. Mahomes had all day to throw the ball. And if the Niners can get to Prescott, look, I think it's a tough game. But if the Cowboys can win up front in this game, or even reasonably win on offense, I think it could be a very, very close, interesting who's got the ball last kind of game.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Hey, before I let you go, I've only got a minute here, so I need you to be fast with this. Where is Aaron Rodgers most likely to play next year?
Brevity's not the strong suit, but I will tell you, I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be right where he is because that contract's huge.
Yeah.
People say, well, the cap hit is only $31 million or whatever. So yeah, but the owner's got to pay him $50-some-odd million. Like, how many owners are shelling that kind of money out? Mm-hmm. There's not, and I don't. And you also, if you're an owner, you got to know that he's happy there. If you're the Titans, we're going to bring him in there. But here's Traylon Burks. Good luck with that. Have fun. I think he's going to be with the Packers, and I think we're going to go through this whole song and dance. And I think he's going to go 7-10 next year because they are in cap hell and they're going to lose a lot of guys.
Same question on Tom Brady.
Oh God, I think the Raiders. He should probably just retire, but I think he links up with McDaniels. He had interest in going there a couple of years ago, so I'll say them. The sleeper on that, though, is the Dolphins. The
Yeah,
Dolphins
on
are
the
the sleeper,
Tua
depending
thing.
on what's
Yeah.
going on with Tua. Yeah, that's the one big sleeper there.
I'd love to see him go to the Jets because God knows we'd have something to talk about every week.
I think that'd be amazing. I think Derek Carr's a great fit for the Jets.
All right. It's good stuff. Matt Verderam, check him out on Fansided. Thank you, my friend. I really appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your week.
You got it. Thanks a lot.
We'll come back. More to do. Final hour of the cash-in right around the corner on SportsMap Radio. And again, hit me up on Twitter at the back page. Again, on Twitter at the back page. Sorry for those of you that were watching on the video side. I had the audio off on the video, so you didn't get to hear me say final hour. But there, I just gave it to you. A couple of interesting headlines to get to from around the NFL. One concerning sometimes I cough into the microphone, and other times I'm just imitating Kirk Cousins, the choke artist known as Kirk Cousins. The Vikings, there had been some unspoken idea that Kirk Cousins would be the quarterback for the Vikings through at least the 2023 season. He was signed to an extension last spring, and now general manager Kwesi Adofo-Mensah confirming that Kirk Cousins will be the quarterback next season. Now, Kirk Cousins is going to be 35. We talk about, what we're doing with Tom Brady, what we're doing with Aaron Rodgers. And those guys are the exceptions to the rule in the NFL, given their age. The fact that they're still playing in the league. Usually when you start talking about a 35-year-old veteran quarterback, you start asking the questions, how many more times are you going to extend him? How much longer is he going to play? That sort of thing. And it sounds like for the Vikings, Kirk Cousins is going to be there next year. But is he going to get another short-term extension, or is he just going to play next season in the final year of his contract? That still remains to be seen. Cousins will get $30 million in cash and count $36.25 million against the team's salary cap next year. An extension would make it more difficult for the team to move on or go in a different direction as he gets into his late 30s, but it also would lower his 2023 cap hit. So, to me, if you're the Vikings, I think you give it one more year with Kirk Cousins, and then you move on. And if Kirk Cousins still wants to play, you figure out a way to work out a contract, or he goes somewhere else. But I don't think at this point, and look, you can give me all the regular season numbers you want on Kirk Cousins. I went through this last night on the show. His postseason numbers aren't good. There's a reason he gets knocked for not being good in prime time, because he's not good in prime time. And last week on a 4th and 8, with the team's season on the line, he threw a 4-yard pass to his tight end who was covered. And the team's season ended in a very drab fashion against the Giants, who they had just beaten a few weeks earlier on that same field. So I'm sorry. I'm not a Kirk Cousins guy. I never have been. I think he's always been moderately overrated. And when you look at the best quarterbacks around the league, if I gave you the choice of a quarterback just for next season, if I gave you a choice for quarterback just for next season, let's see, starting QBs 2022. We'll do this exercise on the other side, because I bet if we did the exercise, Kirk Cousins doesn't grade as high as you think he does. If we start talking about who would you pick as a starting quarterback? We'll do this on the other side. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. We're coming back. More to do in this hour of the Cash In. I'm Jason Page at SportsMap Radio. Yeah. Wake up call. Thank you for being with us tonight. The phone number, 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004, on Twitter at The Back Page. Jennifer Lee Chan does a great job with the 49ers for NBC Sports Bay Area. She will join us coming up in 15 minutes. Get some thoughts with her on this 49ers team, which, look, I'm shocked they're not a bigger favorite. Just a 3.5-point favorite. Started out as a 4.5-point favorite, now just a 3.5-point favorite as we get ready for this divisional weekend matchup. We'll get into what it all means with Jennifer Lee Chan coming up in about 15 minutes here on the Cash In on SportsMap Radio. We were doing an exercise in the last segment about excuse me, I lost my train of thought for a second. We were doing an exercise in the last segment on Kirk Cousins and saying, if you're talking about the 2023 season for 1 year, guys that you would want to have as your starting quarterback, I mean, he doesn't grade as high as you think he does. I mean, if Lamar Jackson's playing, you take Lamar Jackson ahead of him. If Josh Allen's playing, you take Josh Allen. If Joe Burrow's playing, you take Joe Burrow. Trevor Lawrence, Trevor Lawrence is on the upside, but I'll give Cousins the benefit of the doubt there. Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, you'd take ahead of him. I mean, that's 6 already, and that's just in the AFC. Then you get over to the NFC, Dak Prescott, borderline. Aaron Rodgers, you'd take ahead of him. I mean, Daniel Jones just flat out outplayed him in a playoff game. I mean, there's 9 or 10 guys you would conceivably take ahead of Kirk Cousins. There's no way if you're the Vikings you can extend him. He's 35 years old. He's closer to the back nine, way closer to the back nine of his career than he is the front nine. I'm just not a big believer. I don't think you win Super Bowls with guys like Kirk Cousins. I just don't think that's the quarterback today that you're going to win Super Bowls with. He's going to get less and less mobile. But it's funny, looking around the league right now, and I mean, you'd take probably Tua ahead of him as well if Tua's playing. But looking around the league right now, there's a lot of teams with some major quarterback questions going into next year. A lot of questions going into next season. I mean, Tennessee with Ryan Tannehill. The Jets, we all know that situation. The Patriots, we don't know what's going on with Tua in Miami. The Raiders, their quarterback isn't even on the roster currently. I mean, unless somehow, they don't get who they want, and then you go back and pull sort of what the 49ers did and basically beg Jimmy Garoppolo to be your quarterback. Now, if you can't get Rodgers or you can't get Brady, where else would you go? But, go and re-sign Derek Carr, which would be funny considering all the pomp and circumstance surrounding the fact that he's no longer going to be with the team. I just watched, true story, I was in the shower. This is not a sight anybody needs. But I was in the shower watching, and I just happened to be scrolling on my phone while I was in the shower because I'm just never disconnected from my phone, which is probably not a healthy thing. Is that a healthy, Austin, is that not a healthy thing to have your phone in the shower with you? No, literally in the shower. Do you ever do it? Do you ever have your phone with you in the shower? Not in the shower? Yeah, see, I always have it in the shower with me because I have a spot that I could prop it up so it doesn't get wet. So if you could prop your phone up in the shower, would you bring it in with you? What are you? Hold on a second. What are you listening to on YouTube while you're in the shower? Really? Interesting. See, we just learned something new about Austin tonight on the show. I scroll Twitter while I'm in the shower. And I was scrolling Twitter, and a video of Derek Carr popped up. And he was at one of these super churches, one of these mega churches in Las Vegas. And he was preaching. Like he was on the stage preaching about, life's going to throw ups and downs at you. I've had all these people telling me how sorry they were. I don't need your sympathy. I got God on my side. It was basically one of those things. Hellfire and brimstone from Derek Carr from the pulpit, which was kind of interesting to watch. I spent about 3 minutes watching it, and by the time it ended, I was glad it was over. So, the Raiders could always beg him to come back. That's a possibility. Herbert, you'd take over him. Let's see, who else? There's a lot. There's about 9 or 10 guys that you would take. But there's a lot of interesting quarterback questions next year. Who's going to be the quarterback in Houston? Could be one of the guys they wind up drafting. Could be Bryce Young that winds up the quarterback there next year. Indianapolis, I don't think the quarterback is currently on the roster. And Baltimore, who knows what's going to happen with Lamar Jackson. So, there's a lot of different scenarios that could play out over the next few months as we gauge these different quarterback situations. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. And again, you can hit me up on Twitter as well, at The Back Page. Again, on Twitter, at The Back Page. Jennifer Lee Chan will join us coming up in 8 minutes on the program. So if you thought tickets for the Super Bowl were expensive, wait until you hear what I'm about to tell you. Not to be outdone, the Super Bowl, the real sport of football, what's recognized as football around the world, soccer, a football fan has paid $2.6 million for a VIP ticket to see Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi go head-to-head in Saudi Arabia. It's going to be an exhibition match at King Fahd International Stadium on Thursday. It'll feature Paris Saint-Germain and Messi facing a select side made up of players from Al Hilal and Ronaldo's new club, Al Nassr. It's called a special Beyond Imagination ticket for the match. It was auctioned off by the Saudi government's entertainment arm, promising the winner the opportunity to meet Ronaldo and Messi, as well as access to the team dressing rooms and trophy award. The bidding started at $260,000, but eventually it went all the way up to $2.6 million. It's crazy. Before closing on Wednesday, the money raised will reportedly be donated to charity. Thursday's match in Riyadh could be the last time Ronaldo and Messi take the field together. Both of them considered among the best in history. Last featured in the same game, it was Barcelona, 3-0 win over Juventus in December of 2020. The friendly fixture will also feature Ronaldo's first football since signing a contract worth more than, wait for this, $214 million a year with Saudi Pro League side Al Nassr. Can you imagine Ronaldo getting 200? Do you know how much money they must be making having Ronaldo on their team in order for him to be getting $214 million a year? It means no matter what, I mean, he's 37 years old. Usually all these big stars eventually make it over to MLS at the end of their careers. If that's the kind of money he's making, there's no way he ever makes it to MLS. I mean, you think about, all the Beckham came late in his career. Kaká came over late in his career. A lot of really good soccer players have come to MLS at the end of their career. There's no chance Ronaldo ever plays a single match in MLS when you're talking about the fact that he's making $214 million a year at age 37, and he's not going to play much longer. It's just insane. $214 million a year. We think contracts are nuts when a guy gets, when Aaron Judge gets $40 million a year. We think it's crazy. Ronaldo's getting $214 million to play this year with this Saudi Pro League. Jennifer Lee Chan will talk 49ers with us on the other side from NBC Sports Bay Area. Stand by. That's coming up next on the Cash In at SportsMap Radio. Let me know when we have a minute left. Thank you. Continuing with this Wednesday/Thursday edition of the show. Talked to Matt Verderam last hour from Fansided. I think we may have Mike Golick coming on the show tomorrow. Working on it. Efforting. Right now, I'm happy to bring in Jennifer Lee Chan, NBC Sports Bay Area, who joins us on the Cash In on SportsMap Radio and the SportsMap Radio app. Talk about this 49ers team. They are favorites, slightly so, 3.5-point favorites against the Cowboys. Divisional round this weekend. Brock Purdy undefeated. This team has been a juggernaut with him offensively at home. Jennifer, thanks for coming on the show. First of all, let's start from a health standpoint. Any injuries of note as we get ready for this week and this team getting set for this game against the Cowboys?
Surprisingly, no. This deep in the season, it usually is a laundry list of guys who have injuries, but it's just the ones that, are expected. Jimmy Garoppolo is out with a foot injury. Ambry Thomas, the cornerback, he's out with an ankle injury. A couple guys were limited today, but for the most part, the team is really healthy.
Yeah, and that is great. I mean, look, if you're Kyle Shanahan, you can't really have it set up any better than you do right now. One of the things I've talked about with people who sort of cover the game, and they know, and I know Brock Purdy made some plays with his legs on the run and made some interesting throws on the run that certainly opened some people's eyes up last week. There's a lot of people wondering, and you can't simulate this sort of thing in practice, only to a degree you can. But, Micah Parsons and this Dallas team, you get the sense that they're going to throw everything they can to try and make Brock Purdy uncomfortable, in the 49er backfield. What are the 49ers and what are they saying in terms of how they plan to try and thwart that?
They're just taking it one day at a time in their preparation. They're looking at it as it's not a different game than any other the rest of them that they played this season. They're trying not to get too hyped up for it, but they definitely know that Mike Parsons is a guy that they need to kind of disengage before he gets too far. They're going to, I'm sure, have some stunts ready for him with the offensive line, but really all the stars that surround Brock Purdy are who is going to help him not hit the turf on Sunday. He's got so many people around him. He's got Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, and Deebo Samuel, who has been pretty much a Cowboys killer since he got to the 49ers back a few years ago in 2019. So the supporting cast that's around him is really what's going to help him survive on this Sunday's game.
The DeMeco Ryans thing is kind of interesting to me because you've got him coaching this team and trying to get it ready for Dallas. At the same time, he's also one of the hottest, coaching prospects out there when it comes to some of the head coaching vacancies out there. How is he managed? And I don't know how close you've been able to get to him in particular, but, how is he managing to sort of balance the need and want of potentially being a head coach elsewhere with also the preparation for this week?
We actually talked to him tomorrow at the facility, and Kyle Shanahan said, though, I think on Monday in his conference call that D'Amico's going to have a couple interviews on Thursday, a couple interviews on Friday, and then after that, it's pretty much prep for Sunday's game. So he's really good at managing his time. He's got a lot on his plate, as you said, but really, I think he's got this certain, hours set aside during the day where he can talk to other teams about his future.
As much as we talk about this 49ers roster, as much as we talk about Kyle Shanahan, the quarterback situation, the one thing I feel like gets overlooked in all of this is the work that John Lynch has done. Sort of heading up this organization from the top. And you look at, and one of the things I always talk about on the show is the need for people at the top to put the people underneath them in positions to succeed. I don't think it can be overstated, the job that Lynch has done in sort of building this team, from where he is right down the line. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, John Lynch in the front office has done a really good job. You look at the guys who are mid-season acquisitions. Charles Omenihu, who no one really knew his name before he got to the 49ers, is now ranked second in quarterback pressures, right behind Nick Bosa. He had sack, strip sack, fumble against the Seattle Seahawks, really kind of turned that game, the momentum around. And guys like Arden Key, who now, after 2 years left the team and got a huge contract with Jags, and a lot of these other players. I mean, yes, everybody knew who Christian McCaffrey was, but especially the defensive line, these guys that they bring in. And then Tashawn Gibson. Jimmy Ward gets hurt at the beginning of the year. They bring in Tashawn Gibson. He's been a starter since and has been playing really well. You look at also who's been promoted from the 49ers organization. Rand Carthon just became the Titans GM. There's been a lot of different personnel guys. Martin Mayhew is the GM for the Washington Commanders. These guys that are underneath John Lynch are really good at their jobs. Their area scouts are really good at doing their jobs. They found Brock Purdy, for goodness sakes, 262 in the draft. Who would have thought that he'd be trying to lead the 49ers to a Super Bowl? If you told anyone that 6 months ago, they would have laughed.
Yeah. Jennifer Lee Chan, NBC Sports Bay Area, our guest on the Cash In SportsMap Radio, the SportsMap Radio app. You could also check out all of our conversations with our guests on the Cash In podcast as well, which goes up immediately after the show. You mentioned Brock Purdy, so let's go there. You've covered this team and been around them enough to sort of get a sense for what these players are like. Talk about it from the standpoint of covering Purdy and sort of watching him from game one, probably coming in wide-eyed as the starting quarterback for this team, and now 6 games later and sort of the evolution through the last month and a half or so.
That's the thing about Brock Purdy. He was never really wide-eyed. He was calm and collected and knew exactly what he was going to do. I'm sure he had jitters underneath it all, but he doesn't show that to anybody. He has been, ice in his veins. He's very mature, well past what he looks like, because he honestly looks like a teenager. He is 23. He looks like he's 12, but he's 23 years old. He's incredibly mature for his age. When Christian McCaffrey was acquired by the team and traded for the team to the team in Week 8, Brock Purdy was the one who would constantly go over plays with Christian McCaffrey so he could get right up to speed in the offense. Because Christian McCaffrey said he needed to hear the plays, not just to read them. So after practice, they would go out on the field. Brock Purdy would, just like they are right now in practice on the field, they would go through plays. Brock Purdy would call them out. Christian McCaffrey would go through the motions. So he's been really kind of wrapping his head around this playbook since the beginning, since the off season. Very, very smart guy. And I think he doesn't get enough credit for how much work he did in college. He was a 4-year starter at Iowa State. So he's got so much more experience than a lot of the rookies that are out there. Like even Trey Lance, who's on the 49ers roster on IR, obviously with a broken foot, he only started 1 year. And you look at Brock Purdy, and he's so calm and mature under center because he's got so much experience.
There had been talk when Purdy, literally around the time I think of his first start, there had been talk of what if Jimmy Garoppolo can heal fast? What if he could be ready for the NFC Championship game or even the Super Bowl? At this point, is it Brock Purdy or bust?
Absolutely. I don't think there's any way possible that Jimmy Garoppolo replaces Brock Purdy. I think he only returns if something happens to Brock Purdy. Jimmy Garoppolo has not practiced in months. I saw him today in the locker room. He was walking around without any, no crutches, no walking boot, but they were sitting right next to his locker. He was walking with just his socks on through the locker room, but he's not even out there practicing yet. So I can't imagine they would want to put a guy who hasn't practiced in 2 months into the starting lineup when Brock Purdy's been completely successful.
Spending some time with Jennifer Lee Chan, NBC Sports Bay Area. Last one before I let you go. It was really the move of, the trade deadline to bring in Christian McCaffrey to this team. And it almost seems like it's been as seamless as possible. There really was no adjustment period, when you look at the way he's been able to sort of influence this offense. If this team winds up winning a Super Bowl, if they run this thing all the way through to the end and, Brock Purdy doesn't lose a single game as a starting quarterback for this team, how much of it will be owed to that move to go and get Christian McCaffrey?
Oh, a lot. And it's been interesting this season. There's been so many different factors that have brought this team to where it is right now. That's one huge one. But I don't think they would have even traded for Christian McCaffrey if they hadn't started up the season 3-4. So Elijah Mitchell goes down. He's the leading rusher from last year. He goes down in week 1. He goes on IR. Jeff Wilson does a good job, but he doesn't have that downhill speed that Elijah Mitchell has. And they kind of struggled in the run game. And that's such a vital part of Kyle Shanahan's offense. So, if they weren't 3-4 at week 7, I don't think they make that trade.
Interesting.
So you look at what happened to other players on the roster. Jimmy Ward has the injury at the beginning of the season, so they bring in Deshaun Gibson. Now, what was their weak spot?
Jennifer, I gotta run. I don't mean to cut you off, but we're up against a break. I appreciate you coming on. We'll talk soon.
All right, sounds good. Bye.
Thank you, Jennifer. That's my fault. I asked one more question and I shouldn't have. If there's a way to clean that up, though, and just sort of end it maybe somewhere in the middle of that McCaffrey answer to put it in the podcast, because I want her in the podcast, just find a spot and, that where it makes sense. You could just kind of cut it off. That's my fault, though. Yes. The first 2 segments of the show where I talked about the team that needs it the most. Yeah, that part. Getting set to put this baby to bed. Again, if you missed anything from the show tonight, we got a good podcast lined up for you. All football tonight. All football, you'll hear from Matt Verderam in the Cash In with Jason Page podcast. Thoughts with him on the divisional playoff round. Also, if you missed it, our conversation with Jennifer Lee Chan, who does a terrific job with NBC Sports Bay Area, covers the 49ers for that fine media outlet. I know a lot of people down there, and they've done great work over the years covering the Niners. So thank you to Jennifer Lee Chan for joining us as well. That will all be in the podcast, along with our breakdown of this divisional wildcard weekend and the question of the night. And if you go on Twitter right now, on my Twitter feed, you'll see the question there, our poll question tonight, which is quite simple. Which team needs a win this weekend the most? Which of the 8 teams competing this weekend needs a win the most? And we narrowed it down to the Eagles, Bengals, Bills, and 49ers. I think it is Philadelphia that needs the win the most, but you're welcome to weigh in on our poll. So go and check it out. That is on Twitter at the back page. Also, if you are not following me, on TikTok, go and do so. I am there. The Jason Page. We got new content going up there every day. So go and check it out. Nuggets win tonight. We didn't do any live betting tonight. It wasn't anything I was particularly in love with. But we didn't do any NBA, and it has just gone final. Denver beats Minnesota 122-118. That has gone final 122-118. Kings and Lakers playing a good one out in LA right now. That one, 111-108 Sacramento with 30 seconds to go in the fourth quarter. DeAndre Fox has 30 tonight. De'Aaron Fox, sorry, has 30 tonight for the Kings. LeBron's got 32 for the Lakers. He's by the way, in double figures for the Lakers. Westbrook's got 19 off the bench. Kendrick Nunn's got 11 off the bench. Max Christie's got 12 off the bench. And Wenyen Gabriel has got 10 off the bench. So the Lakers trying to get a win late. They trail 111-108, Kings on top in that game. We'll keep you posted on what's going on in the final seconds of that game and the final seconds of this show. 1-800-224-2004 is the phone number, as I had mentioned. Couple things to finish out the show with. I mentioned golf and the fact that we have a PGA Tour event in my backyard here in Palm Springs, California this week. It gets underway tomorrow, the American Express. Well, Live Golf is apparently getting close to a TV deal. Remember all those months ago when Live Golf was like, we're going to have a TV deal. There's networks lining up. They all want to have Live Golf on their networks. Well, Not exactly what you would have been expecting if you're a Live Golf fan when you think of TV deals. The Saudi-backed tour is reportedly joining Nexstar Media Group, and you're going to be able to watch Live Golf on the CW. Wow. So David Faraday left the PGA Tour, left his job with NBC, left his job with Golf Channel, went to the CW. Talk about going to a completely irrelevant situation. Yeah, doesn't look very good. The CW is apparently where they may be going. According to reports, the Saudi-funded golf league is nearing a deal with the CW. That's the same network that brought you The Flash, The Frog, other C-list programming. Guess everybody wants to get into the sports realm. Why don't they just put it on, what's that? True TV? Why don't they just put it on True TV? You want to just be completely irrelevant. Just put it on True TV. Ugh. It's just so bad. It's so bad. You really do have to wonder, how much longer this Live Golf thing's going to go. Because you're not bringing anybody to their knees with the CW. And look, I know the Saudis have limitless resources and can, they can certainly just pour money into this thing as long as they want to because they have endless resources. But you have to wonder at what point the Saudis are going to get bored with this and just say, you know what, we're good. Because you cannot sustain, the popularity and all this stuff if you're on the CW. People aren't even going to know where to look for that on the weekends or on, just Saturdays because Live Golf only plays 3 days, or maybe it'll just be Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and you'll be able to see it on Sunday. But again, if it comes down to it and you're talking about a Sunday on the PGA Tour or Sunday of Live Golf on the CW, what are you watching? You and I both know the answer. And it's not going to be the CW for Live Golf. Lakers fall at home to the Kings 112-111. So Sacramento will improve to 25-18 on the year. The Lakers drop to 20-25. Last item of the night. Last night, the Philadelphia Flyers, in part of a program that the NHL has had going on for years, which is trying to get closer to the LGBTQ community, had their Pride Night. But for one Flyers player, wasn't feeling too much pride. Flyers defenseman Ivan Provorov chose not to participate in the Flyers' LGBTQ plus Pride Night festivities, which included wearing a rainbow-themed warm-up jersey prior to the Flyers game against the Ducks. He's 26 years old, says he is Russian Orthodox, and explained he chose not to participate because of his religious beliefs. He said, quote, "I respect everybody's choices. My choice is to stay true to myself and my religion." Flyers coach John Tortorella did not bench Provorov, actually came to his defense, saying Provorov is being true to himself and to his religion, saying, quote, "This has to do with his belief in his religion. It's one thing I respect about Provy. He's always true to himself. That's where we're at with that." In a statement to CBS News Wednesday, the NHL said, in part, clubs decide whom to celebrate, when and how. With league counsel and support, players are free to decide which initiatives to support, and we continue to encourage their voices and perspectives on social and cultural issues. In a statement issued ahead of the game, a Flyers spokesperson said the team is committed to inclusivity and is proud to support the LGBTQ plus community. Many of our players are active in their support of local LGBTQ organizations, and we're proud to host our annual Pride Night again this year. Flyers will continue to be strong advocates for inclusivity and the LGBTQ plus community. Just a note to Provorov, coming from somebody that identifies in that LGBTQ plus range. You could say all you want that you respect everybody's choices, but even that phraseology is to assume that I make a choice in being LGBTQ plus. And you're just ignorant if you think that's a choice. It's no more of a choice than the color of your eyes, the size of your feet, whether you're left-handed or right-handed, whatever you want to say. There's no choice involved in me being a gay male any more than you being born in Russia or anything else. So unfortunate that he made the choice not to support the Pride Night, but it just goes to show, for as far as we've come in America in doing better to support the LGBTQ plus community in this country, we still obviously have a long way to go, and guys like Provorov obviously prove that. That's how we close out this Wednesday edition of the show. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching on Twitch, Twitter, whatever other platform you're watching on. Thanks for listening on SportsMap Radio and the SportsMap Radio app. Thanks to Austin for producing it. We'll see you tomorrow. I'm Jason Page. Thanks for listening to The Cash In on SportsMap Radio. Bye! All right, thank you. I'll catch you later. See you tomorrow. For those watching on the video side, thanks for checking it out. I will catch you all later. I am going to crash. I'm tired. And tomorrow I get to go watch golf all day. Lucky me. Anyways, have a great night. We'll see you back here on Thursday for the Cash In on SportsMap Radio, the SportsMap Radio app, Twitch, Jason Page 77 on Twitch. And don't forget, if you're not following me on TikTok, the Jason Page, go and follow me there. And don't forget to chime into our poll question on Twitter at the back page. The question tonight about who needs to win the most in the playoffs this weekend in the NFL. I'll see you all back here tomorrow. Have a great night.